motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. A recent tweet from two-division champion Devin Fulton, who said, LOL, it really be people who never got in any fights in the street or in the ring trying to analyze boxing.
Oof.
By that reckoning, he's talking about a lot of people. The vast majority of YouTubers and podcasters that cover the sport, the vast majority of boxing writers, journalists that cover the sport, that weren't boxers themselves and didn't get into many, if any, street fights. Now, what could have set Devin Fulton off to tweet a tweet like this one? I'm not sure, but in a very general sense, in all of organized sports, athletes don't seem to have the best relationship with the media. That's not exclusive to boxing.
That's all sports.
I think it stems from them not wanting someone to tell them how to do their job. They love it when you love them, but hate it.
Well, the media's all right as long as they're lavishing compliments on you.
The fans, the podcasters, the YouTubers, so long as they're stroking your ego, it's all fun in the sun. But as soon as some constructive criticism arises,
He's not the first boxer to say something like this. That the people that cover the sport can't play it themselves.
need I remind you that you don't need to be a 5-star chef yourself to know that the food at a restaurant isn't good. No more than you need to be a director to know that a movie isn't well put together and isn't worth watching. You don't need to be a basketball player to know which basketball team stands a greater chance of beating another one.
You don't need to have played for the Yankees or been a member of the franchise to know that they have the most championships.
So when Devin Fulton says that it's people that never boxed or never had a fight in the street that are the ones that want to analyze boxing,
You know you're talking about your customers, right?
the people that you expect to pay to be there, you expect to show up, the people you expect to want to watch these fights at home, they're not allowed to have their thoughts?
You don't want them to have any opinions on how you do your job, but without them, you wouldn't have a job.
You've often heard it said by many a boxer over the years that boxing is a business when most of the boxers don't know shit about business.
The people you're alienating, the people you're criticizing, ostracizing, without them, you ain't got a job, buddy.
Now, you might think it's funny that non-boxers might have opinions on boxing, but what's even more funny is that a lot of those non-boxers pick you to lose to Naoya Inoue.
Having not boxed before, they already knew what they needed to know.
Now, I remember a long time ago, Erickson Lubin came at me with the same argument. I told him what I just told you.
Oh, I don't know shit about boxing? That's fine. I knew you were going to lose to Jermel Charlo, though, and I knew you were going to lose to Sebastian Fundora, so in essence, I knew what I needed to know.
Those videos are still up on this channel, because here on this channel, we make those forecasts all the time. And I picked Erickson to lose the both of those fights the same way I picked Devin Fulton to lose the Naoya Inoue fight. So maybe you're confused as to what it is these spectators are trying to do.
I mean, you know they're not trying to box, right? You know they're not actually trying to be boxers. If that is your career choice, that's between you and God. But the people watching it,
No more than the people watching an NFL game or an NHL game, an NBA game.
MLB.
The hell told you they wanted to be players? You may not like the sound of this, but you're here to entertain us.
Organized sports is just another form of entertainment for the spectators.
And without no spectators, there ain't no sport. Without no customers, you ain't got no job. You ought to be thankful that anybody cares enough to cover you because you're not a ticket seller.
You're not a big draw.
So often we see that the fighters are ungrateful to the very promoters that invest their money in their careers to one day develop them into draws and big marquee attractions that if they're ungrateful with them, of course they're going to be ungrateful with me and you.
They're ingrates.
How many times have you heard me say this before? That if the fighters have it their way, it's always supposed to work out to where they get more. More money, more leverage, more this, more that, tantamount to petulant children who think they're kids in a candy store.
Some fighters have a better understanding of dynamics between themselves and their supporters, who they would like to be their supporters, and they compose themselves as such.
These are the fighters that actually have fans, and these are the fighters that actually do well. These are the fighters that go on to make vast sums of cash, whereas the vast majority of other fighters,
They're bitter.
They're ingrates, ungrateful. An inconvenient truth. Boxing in America really isn't what it used to be. And most of the coverage it gets now is not from major news outlets or popular periodicals, terrestrial television. Most of the coverage boxing now gets is from the fans themselves. So boxers like Stephen Fulton should feel lucky that anybody cares enough to cover them, that anybody cares enough to even talk about them, because the major outlets aren't.
Maybe somebody said something you don't like.
So here's a bit of advice. You take the good with the bad. That's why boxing is the best microcosm for life. Life itself. In boxing, you gotta take the good with the bad.
Well, you think people are just supposed to say good things about you all the time. They're just supposed to say things that rub you the right way.
That's how your average boxer's mind works, and they only really give access to interviewers that they know are going to ask them softball questions, because God forbid somebody should ask you something you don't like or ruffle your feathers.
Why, I can't do it.
And that's why I'm not one of these podcasters rushing to be buddy-buddy with every Joe boxer that comes along, because the boxers themselves rise and fall like the wheat.
Common denominator is their nasty attitudes.
So all the commentator jobs should probably go to boxers that are either punch drunk or have the personality of warm oatmeal.
Is that it?
And all the writing jobs should go to the boxers instead of the guys with degrees in journalism.
Is that it?
At its base, it's an ego trip. What the boxers can't seem to wrap their minds around sometimes is there are professions that require a different skill set to their own. Now, they may have what it takes to be a boxer, but that don't mean you got what it takes to be a coach, a trainer. That don't mean you've got what it takes to be a promoter.
Or an analyst, a commentator.
The remedy would be for you to get over yourself.
He's gonna have to prove me different, and we'll see.
I definitely
Fight back. Don't let him talk to you like that.
Shut up. God damn, like you don't stop talking.
Fuck no.
You're saying kambosos didn't beat your ass?
No, he did not.
Oh my God, bro. What
He
you
did
talking
not.
about?
He didn't?
No.
Fuck, bro.
What'd he
You
do?
fucking stupid.
I beat my own ass.
Oh my God, he hit himself in
Damn
the
right.
ring.
Did he
Yeah.
beat your ass when
No,
y'all
he
fought?
did not. You shouldn't be talking right now about beating asses, because the man's to my left
I got
don't
my
whip
O.
that.
I got my O. Do you?
You got your O.
I got my O. Do you?
I got my ring. You got your ring?
Okay, I had a ring.
You had.
and I gave it up.
Plural.
And I gave it up. Kambosos
Muhammad
fucked
Ali
you
had
up.
5 losses.
Kambosos
Sugar Ray
fucked
Leonard
you
had
up.
losses.
Kambosos fucked you up.
What rubs me the wrong way is how his brother knew that I was
Set up
gonna
how?
test
How could you set it up?
positive.
How could you
How do
set
you
it
know?
up?
How do you know?
How could we set it up?
How do you know?
He said he had a
How
dream.
do you know though? How do you know?
He didn't
Add
know.
the shit that fact that when you guys
Shut
aired
the
it out,
fuck
ESPN,
up.
you're
Shut
with
the fuck up.
ESPN. Where? In
Wait, what?
Connecticut? This man sues. We
You're
don't
delusional.
sue.
End of the day, my main focus is Ramirez because you know what? If I don't win that fight, then I don't get to the Ryan fight. So that's my main focus right
They'll
now.
find a way for
And
you.
then,
They'll find a way.
Shut the fuck
Jose, how do you view
up.
this? Do you view
all
this-
you do is ramble all day. That's all you do. That's all
Yo,
you do.
what are
You're
you listening
rambling
to,
all
bro?
day.
Many are reacting to what was a sit-down interview with 6 of the combatants for Turkey's show in New York next month. And Teofimo Lopez seems to have gotten a lot of attention. Veteran boxing scribe Stephen Kimothy reacted to it by saying, Teofimo Lopez needs to come to grips with his fight with George Kambosos. He lost. Bottom line, there are very few asterisks in this game, such as failed drug tests, for example, but you decided to go through with that fight. Well, you basically have to live with the results. We saw what we saw, and nobody really thinks he won that fight.
He attributes the loss not to George beating him, but him beating himself, and whatever he was going through at that time. And if it were an isolated incident,
If that were the only time that Teofimo looked flat, and he looked dynamic every other time we saw him, then I could see. Then that would reconcile it. But Teofimo has looked flat on a number of occasions following the George Kambosos fight.
some instances where people think he should have lost.
In the Sandor Martin fight, and the Jermaine Ortiz fight.
While the George Kambosos, it's important to note that while Teofimo was able to eke out a decision in those fights were promoted by Top Rank, whereas the George Kambosos fight was promoted by Matchroom.
Why is that important?
Because in the one fight where he put forward a flat performance and he wasn't the house fighter, he lost.
So he may have had a safety net in being the house fighter when he was fighting under the Top Rank banner, but this upcoming show is not a Top Rank show.
You're not the house fighter.
So you may not have that safety net to avail you the way you did in the Sandor Martin fight and the way you did in the Jermaine Ortiz fight. He's never fancied an Arnold Barboza fight. When they were both at Top Rank, he expressed his aversion to facing Arnold, calling him a bum.
Same guy who makes time to fight the likes of Steve Claggett. didn't have no time for Arnold.
He's never wanted this fight, and he's only having it now because he has to. If he wants to keep the brown belt and he doesn't want to have to surrender it to Arnold, he has to fight him. So a part of what people noticed is that he's still in denial about his loss to George Kambosos, which essentially means he hasn't learned anything from it.
Apart from how to make excuses.
Since then, nothing about his corner situation has changed. The saving grace was supposed to be working with Eddie Reynoso up until all of that fell apart not but 1 or 2 weeks ago. Likely that Eddie's got a lot going on that weekend involving Canelo and involving Jaime in Saudi that he can't be there in New York for Teofimo.
Just imagine trying to get 4 guys ready for their fights that are fighting on the same weekend.
And that's bad enough. To make matters worse, 2 of them are going to be in New York and 2 of them are going to be in Saudi. Eddie had to make an executive decision, and he made it. And so with that, nothing about Teofimo's corner situation has changed.
Meaning?
Same deficiencies you saw in the Kambosos fight, the Martin fight, and the Jermaine Ortiz fight may still be there because nothing has changed.
And now he's fighting Arnold in what isn't a top-ranked show.
And the last time he boxed off platform, he lost.
Doing a lot of talking.
What else a lot of people noticed is the amount of time that Teofimo Lopez spent taking shots at Devin Haney, taking jabs at him when you're not about to fight him. You're not fighting him next or after next.
What are you worried about him for?
Need to be worried about Arnold. You need to be worried about Arnold Barboza, not Devin Haney. But you're trying to engage in activities that you see everyone else engaging in because it's become everybody's pastime to take shots at Devin over what he has going on with Ryan that does not involve Teofimo.
He wants to go with the flow. He wants to be one of the cool kids. He wants it really bad. And it's noticeable.
And what is this junior varsity league? Couple of kids sitting around with each other. Let's call Ryan Garcia the cool kid, Devin the nerd, and Rolly the retard.
Jose and Arnold, they're a couple of super seniors because they're older than these guys. Let's say they got held back.
You remember guys like them walking down the same hallways as everybody else, except they already had 5 o'clock shadow. Still in high school.
Tio?
Tio's a bit of an outcast, trying hard to fit in, though still just a dork.
How is that different from being a nerd?
Dork's too dumb to be a nerd, but too weak to be a jock. Too awkward to be a cool kid. He's a dork. Did you notice that everybody else was dressed for the weather except Teofimo, who was wearing overalls without an undershirt? He looked like something out of a 90s R&B video.
I don't know what this guy's doing.
What appeared to be a beachhead? I don't know what he's doing. Is he supposed to be a farmhand? Is he singing? Is he farming? What's happening here?
It was cringe.
You see, he's laying into Devin Haney because he's trying to fit in. He sees everybody else doing it, so he wants to do it. To the point you start to wonder, what's your problem?
Devin and Ryan have enough reasons to go at each other that you don't need to be the third wheel.
To the point, got so bad, even Rolly Romero seemed more reserved and more mature than Teofimo because he's trying too hard. And that's what Teofimo is, a try-hard.
You gonna let him talk to you like that?
Shit.
Who are you trying to sound like?
Teofimo appears to be as a composite image with a composite persona of pop culture references and slang, jargon, things you hear other people say without any spirit behind it, without any meaning.
You're just trying to sound like something or trying to sound like someone.
Engaging in these activities ahead of the show in May, it's all well and good for now, but it's not going to mean much if you don't seal the deal with Arnold. All of this will have aged badly if you don't take care of Arnold. And that's who you need to be focused on, not Devin.
Had more words for Devin than you had for Arnold. You had more energy for Devin than you had for Arnold because you want to be a part of that scene.
Don't lose sight of what this is. This card in May is a segue to a Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney showdown. This is just an appetizer.
Build up.
Teofimo was just lucky. Damn lucky that Turkey found use for him, found him a slot on this show, found him a spot.
But this build-up is not about you.
And when you're focusing on something else other than the man that is in front of you, that's Arnold.
You seem distracted.
It's not a good sign. In the last 5, going on 6 years, Teofimo has only ever offered up 2 dynamic performances against two credible opponents. Only two, Lomachenko in late 2020 and Josh Taylor some years later. And those victories come with asterisks.
They do.
Lomachenko went into that fight with a shoulder injury. Josh Taylor...
He had a foot injury.
If what you are now doing is excusing your loss to George Kambosos based on what you were dealing with, does that logic not apply to them?
You're saying you were sick.
Well, they were injured, so by that reckoning, that amnesty that you're looking for must also extend to them. Josh Taylor was coming off of plantar fasciitis, I believe it was, and a year of inactivity and an arguable loss to Jack Catterall.
Did everybody all of a sudden forget that controversy that long before he fought Teofimo Lopez, he arguably lost to Jack Catterall?
And that's the last time that Teofimo Lopez looked dynamic in the ring. With all those aforementioned factors and looking the way that he's looked in other fights, I think it matters.
Because why didn't you look like that with Jermaine Ortiz? Why didn't you look like that with Steve Claggett?
And how are you about to look with Arnold Barboza, who you never wanted to fight but are now being forced to keep your brown belt?
Claggett!
Could be another perfect storm brewing for Teofimo Lopez, who after all the talk and all the trolling, the taunting,
All the shenanigans. If he loses, oof.
gonna have a hell of a hard time finding sympathy after running his mouth that much. Oh, it's true. Americans do have an affinity for trash talkers so long as they can back it up.
Elite level fighters don't lose to George Kambosos.
Sorry, I had to say it. I think Teofimo is overrated. I think he's grossly overrated. I don't even want him on my pound-for-pound list because elite-level fighters do not lose to George Kambosos.
Come on, he was sick.
And so was Gennady Golovkin when he beat Gabe Rosado from pillar to post and split his face. He had the flu,
He was sick.
but he didn't lose. He didn't lose like Teofimo lost to George Kambosos. And I'm sorry to say that elite-level fighters do not lose to George Kambosos. But he did, and he's still in denial about it. And because he's in denial, that means he hasn't learned anything.
Oh, you better not lose next month.